Hello everyone, my name is Linda Van Wieringen. I am the president and the elder of the Vernon and District Métis Association, and I am also the Region 3 Women's Representative. I am a proud Métis woman who have Cree, Ojibwe, Scottish, English, and Chinese in my background. I have been doing beadwork since I was 7 years old, and today I'm going to be teaching you a little bit about our Métis culture and our beadwork, and we will be making a little beaded pin like this today. So in your kits that you would have received a blue beading cloth, 1 size 12 needle, some 9mm beading thread, 3 packages of beads, yellow, red, and blue, and these are size 10/0 beads. You would have received a pin back, a little picture of what we're doing, and then also you would have received a piece of Pellon. Now Pellon is the stiff interfacing that's on the back here, and attached to that Pellon there would have been a piece of blue felt and a little pattern piece that I have stapled on here for your convenience so it doesn't slide around. And you also would have received another blue piece of felt for the background, as well as instructions. So if we don't get through this today, you will be able to finish it off at home, either by reading the instructions or following this video. So now I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the Métis beadwork. Métis beadwork was inspired by the Europeans when they would come over and they had all their beautiful embroidered clothing and stuff. And the Métis took it upon themselves to incorporate their designs and create their own style of beading. So they use seed beads instead. Some of them did the embroidery, but most of it was done with seed beads. And their patterns that they chose were usually to reflect plants and flowers in their surroundings. They beaded quite a bit of stuff, like even their saddle blankets were beaded, their purses, their pouches, clothing, jackets, moccasins, of course, leggings. And they also beaded things such as what were called octopus bags, which were worn by the men hanging on their hips. And this is an example of an octopus bag. And they were so called octopus bags because they have 8 legs. Okay, each one of these little legs that they have are actual pockets. And the men would wear these bags and they would put their items such as flint, ammunition, tobacco into these little pockets, and they would wear them around them and have them handy. The beadwork that was done on them basically represents what they call like the octopus. So the very center flower would usually represent the mouth of the octopus. The smaller ones on the sides represented the eyes, and the ones going down the little legs here were representative of the tentacles of an octopus. You will see other bags that only have 4 legs on them. And they are not called octopus bags. They're actually called fire bags because they were carried, just used to carry flint and things for making a fire. So this was just, like I said, just one example of the work that the Métis did. Now, the men would wear these, and they would wear this along with their elegantly beaded jackets or chaps or whatever they had on, as well as their sashes. And the men were called the peacocks of the prairies because they were so colorful. So I'm going to get on with our class, and as I'm working the class with you, I will be giving you more information on the Métis. Okay, let's get started. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to thread your needle with about an arm's length of thread, and you're going to knot one end. So we are just working with a single strand of thread. not double. Okay. And once you have that done, what you're going to do is you're going to pick up your pattern piece here like this, and you're going to take your needle and you're going to go from the back, this is the back. So you're going to go from the back and you're going to bring your needle through the very center of that flower. So it takes a little bit to get in there, but so that's where you want your needle to be coming out, the very center of that flower. Okay. And you're going to pull that through so that your thread is now exiting the center of that flower. You're going to pick up one of the yellow beads and you're going to just slide it down, and you're going to take your needle and you're going to poke it right beside that yellow bead. And what you want to do is you want to have that, and you're going to push it through, and you want that bead to be anchored in the center of your flower, or as close to the center as possible. Now my thread is coming out the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my needle from the back and bring it back up to the front. And I'm going to bring it as close to that yellow bead as possible. So it's like that. I'm just going to try and see if I can, there we go. We're going to pull that through. And this time we're going to pick up 7 yellow beads. So I have 7 yellow beads on my needle. I'm going to slide all of those down to the base. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass my needle. Oops, tangled up here. I'm going to pass my needle through the very first bead that I put on that. Of the 7 beads. So we're going to pass it through there. And what this is going to do, it's going to make a loop, a circle of beads. So I've got that little circle of beads. And what I'm going to do with that circle of beads is I'm going to flip it over top so that it goes around that the first bead that we put on is now in the center of the circle of beads. I'm going to pull it snug, and I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to put it back down, pull it through. So and your bead, that'll pop up a little bit. That's not a big deal. You just hold it down with your finger. Okay, so now my circle is covering the top of that first bead that was put on. So now we're going to do a technique which is called couching. And to do that technique, all you need to do is you need to bring your needle back up on the inside of that circle, between the circle and the center bead, and you're going to pull it up. So my thread, as you can see, is coming up between the center bead and the outside beads, outside ring. And I'm going to pass that thread in between 2 beads on the outside ring, and then I'm going to put my needle back through. So what that does is that will hold that in place. Okay. Then I'm going to go again in between. I'm going to move over a little bit, and I'm going to go in between the center bead and the outside ring. And I'm going to pull my thread through, and I'm going to go through in between the next 2 beads, over and back down into the back. And that, you'll see it's now starting to hold it down. This back part isn't tacked down yet, but that, and you're just going to do that all the way around. So we've got 2. I'm going to go again through the center, pull it up, and then back down between the two, and anchor it into place. Now you can see, and you'll be able to tell where you've tacked it down and where you haven't by what beads are lifting up. You see, I've only got a couple beads lifting up here now. So again, I'm going to go back up between the center bead and the outside row, and I'm going to pull my thread up, go between the next two beads, and back down again. One more time, back up between the center and the two beads on the outside, and back down. So now if you try and move those beads around, they should be pretty snug on there, not going to go anywhere. Okay. So now we're going to do that one more time, make a ring one more time. So what we're going to do is we're going to go right up close beside the outside of the ring of beads that we just put on. And we're going to pull it out. So our thread is now exiting right close to the outside ring that we have there. We're going to make another ring. So this time we're going to pick up, I believe it's 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Let me just check and see how many it is there. 12, 13, 14, 15, and I'm going to try 16 beads around here. And I believe, okay, so we've got 16 beads on my thread. And once again, I'm going to go in the opposite direction through. So what you want to do is you want to make sure when you're putting your making your little rings that you're not going this way through the beads. You don't want to be going this way through the beads. You want to be going in the opposite direction and going through that first bead, if I can get to it. Come on, you. So you're going to go through that first bead that you put on the row of 16, and again we're going to make a little circle like that, right? And you just slide it all the way down to the base. And once again, you're going to put that little circle that you just did with the 16 beads on. You're going to wrap that around the previous circle that you had. Come on, you. So it's going to be like this. And then you're going to fold that over top of the other ones so that it's like that. And again, you're going to go into the back, needle from the front to the back to hold that into place. Okay. And now you're going to tack that down the same way you did the first row of circle of beads. And you're this time, instead of going between the very center bead, and the first row, you're going to go in between the two round rows. So you're going to go in between the row that you just put on and the row that you had previously added. And you're going to go in between those two beads and back through. Okay. And you're going to do that. Now, in this one here, you can do every second bead. You can tack down every second bead. So I went through that one. I'm going to move over two beads like this. Really, I'm sorry, it's really hard to see here. You're going to come up between those 2 rows of beads and then go between and down on the outside of that second row that you've added and tack it into place. Now you see this part's lifting up. That's because I haven't tacked that into place. This is staying down. So I know I've tacked those ones into place. Again, up through there, between the 2 rows. And then across and over between 2 beads. And tack it down. And you're just going to do that all the way around. Up between 2 beads, back down. And this method is called couching. So again, between the 2 rows that I've got on there, 2 circular rows, and back down. Okay, again, between 2 circular rows, and back down. You can do that all the way around till you've got it all tacked down, nothing's lifting up on you. Now I'm using my nail and I'm going around and I'm seeing that none of those beads are lifting up on me, so I've got it tacked down all the way around. Okay. So once that's all done, then we're going to bring our needle up right next to one of those lines, the outside lines of your petal here. So it doesn't matter which one you bring the needle up, but you want to bring it right along one of those lines. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to push those ones aside. We don't need the yellow beads anymore. And we're going to bring out our blue beads. And we're going to just pour those onto our little beading cloth here. And we're going to start working on our outline. So we're going to pick up, now I do this a little differently than other people do, so to try and make it a little easier for you, but we're going to pick up 5 blue beads. Okay, slide them down, and I'm going to lay those 5 blue beads along that line that's on the flower pattern. Snug them right up against your center flower. And then I'm going to poke my needle down and into the fabric so that it now lays like that. Now I'm going to bring my needle back up through on one side, or it doesn't really matter which side you're going to, one side of those beads along the line, and I'm going to pull that up. My thread is now coming up on mine's on the left hand side of my beads, and now I'm going to cross that thread between the second and third bead down from the top. So here's my thread. I'm bringing it over and between the second and third thread, and I'm going to pass my needle on the opposite side of those beads back again into where that line is. So basically what I'm doing now is I'm tacking those beads into place. So my thread has come between these 2 beads here. Now I'm going to do that one more time, and I'm going to come up between the first and second bead that I added. Okay. And I'm going to pull my thread out, and I'm going to pass the thread through the first and second bead that I added, so that I've come over, as you can see, between those two beads. And I am now going to put my needle back down on the opposite side, and I am going to tack those beads into place. Okay, so now those have been couched into place. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my needle up between the bottom blue bead and my yellow beads that are on there at the base. And I'm going to take my thread, and I'm going to run my thread, my needle and my thread through the 5 beads that I just put on. See where the tip of my needle is up here? So my needle is going through those 5 beads, so that when I pull that through, my thread is now exiting that very top blue bead. Okay. Again, I'm going to pick up 5 beads. I have 5 beads on my thread, my needle. I'm going to slide those down, and they will butt right up against, as you can see, they will slide right down next to my previous 5 beads that are on there. And again, once again, I'm going to follow where this line is on my pattern here, and I'm going to put my needle into the pattern there where the line is. Now, I'm going to show you as an example. I did this deliberately. You'll see that this might be bumping up a little bit. Got a little bit of a bump. That's because I brought my needle too far back on the line. It should have been a little further up, so those beads are going to buckle up. So we don't want that. So if that should happen, just remove your thread off your needle, pull the thread out, oops, rethread your needle, and try that again. If you find it easier to lay your piece down on the table, you can do that too. And just make sure you don't go too far back. You want to be just slightly ahead of those beads, so that they will lay flat along the line that's on there. Okay, and then again, we're going to go back along the line on one side of those beads, and we're going to go between the second and third bead on the top, cross over, and back down again on the line to tack those 2 beads into place. And you're working backwards again. You're going to go between the first and the second bead that you just added, and you're going to go across and between those 2 beads and back down. Again, couching them into place. So now they're a little bit crooked. That's where this going back through. So you're at the base of those 5 that you just added. We're going to put the needle in between there, and we're going to pass our thread back up and through the 5 beads that we just added. So once again, our thread is now exiting the top of those 10 beads now. Okay, and you're just going to continue on in that manner all the way around till you get to the opposite side. Okay, so once you've gotten all the way around your petal, you should be back to the center again, And like I said, as you get a little closer, you might need to add just 1 or 2. You won't be able to put 5 beads on there, which is fine. Just fill it in until you come to the very center again. So now that you've got that first row on, we're going to start at the base of the flower again, right next to your the row that you just put on the petals. And we're going to do the same thing. You're going to pick up your 5 beads. You're going to tack it down backwards twice. Go back up through the 5 beads so your thread is exiting the top. And you're going to do a second loop around here. Okay. So we'll start 5 beads. Slide them down, and you're going to go right next. You want to butt them right up tight against the previous row, and you're going to go right as close as you can to that previous row, and like that. And we're going to tack them down. I'm going to go back between my first and second bead from the top. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to tack it down. You can either do it either way. You can go over both rows of beads. So you can go from here and right over into the second row of beads like this, and tack it down over the second row of beads, which butts those beads right close up to the other ones. Or you can just go between your beads and go in between, just in between the rows. So it's totally your choice. Oops, I just pulled my thread off the needle. So the main thing is you just want to make sure that you get those beads tacked down. And then again, from the bottom, once you've got it tacked back down, you're going to go from the bottom, you're going to go up through those 5 beads. Once again, my needle will be exiting the top of those 5 beads. And I can start again by adding my next set of 5. And now, as I'm getting around, because I no longer have that, I can actually start to follow the other line in the opposite direction, in the next petal over. Again, making sure that your needle doesn't get too far back. You don't want your beads buckling up. You need to give them a little bit of room. Okay. And once again, following the line. And you can use your thumb. So usually your thumb will sit right in there. It'll hold your beads in place, and you can stitch around your thumb, and it kind of use the shape of your thumb to shape your actual petals. So again, I'm going to go back right up close to the line between my first or my second and third bead from the top, tack it down, and one more time, back, tack it down, and then go back to where my 5 beads were originally put on, and go through them all again. Like that. And there we go. And we will continue around to the next petal. Okay, so you just continue on and around that matter. So I've got 3 of my 5 petals done. Now I was just looking at the instructions that I had included in here, and I'm talking about a spoke in there. It's kind of a different way what I'm showing you now than what's in the instructions. So I don't want you to get confused. So when I was talking about adding spokes in the instructions, what I meant by that was if you start at the base and along those lines, and I believe I said pick up 5, might have been 4 beads. 1, 2, 3, 4 beads. And basically all we did was adding the spoke was I did the spokes, instead of going all the way around a complete circle, what I did was I did 4 beads like this, 2 rows of them, and then I went to the next one and I did 4 beads, and I did 4 beads, and then 4 beads, so that like this. I'll just show you. So here's my one spoke. So I did the 4 beads, and then I couched them down. This is sometimes a little easier to do it this way, because then you can make sure that your petals are all uniform in size and you're using the same amount of beads each time. So, okay, so now, for instance, if I was to go to this one here, where there is no, I'm going to this line here, and I'm going to pick up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 beads. Oops. And I'm going to make a spoke. So I call them spokes because they're like on a wheel, the spokes of a bike. So there's my 4 like that, and I would tack that down. So I would tack the first one in between the first and second bead, and then in between the third and the fourth bead. So I've couched those 4 into place. And then I would go right next to that one. At the base again, I would pick up another 4. And I would lay it right next to those ones, because that's going to be my second row, as we're doing in these here. Okay, so those are little spokes. That's what I refer to as spokes in your instructions. And again, I would tack that down, and then I would count from the 4 here and the 4 here. I would say, okay, there's, 30 beads, or however many beads there are around there, 25 beads. And in that instance, I'm just going to tack these 4 down, and I will show you what I mean. Okay, so now I'm thinking, okay, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So there's 36 beads in my a total from the base to the base in my petal. So if I have my thread coming out of here, I've now added my first 4 beads on there. I'm going to bring that up. Whoops. Okay, so my needle is exiting the top of those first 4 beads. And I know I need to have 36 beads. So I've got 4 and I've got 8. My 4 on this base and the 4 on that spoke. So we're going to minus 8 off of the 32, which is 24 beads. So I would pick up, now this is another way of doing it. 1, 2, 3. So I've got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, whoops, 13. So I would need actually 28 beads, not 24. So I could put those 28 beads on there. And, whoops, I came out the wrong one here, but I'm going to have to add 4 more because I don't have a 4 for my spoke there. So and then I would go right back down. And what this does, you see, it gives you a big loop of beads. So now I have a huge loop of beads there. And now, if I want, I can just couch this all the way back. So I would go at the start at your second bead from the inside. Tack it down. And again, just following the line. Every second bead, just go and tack it down. Now this is just a little bit faster way of doing it. Traditionally, it would have been done 4 beads at a time, 4 to 5 beads. But this will just kind of help speed up the process a little bit. So what you would do is you would go that way and you would just tack those all the way down and around. You would have all your little spokes ahead of time. And you would just go along and couch it into place. And I'm doing every second bead. So in between every bead. And again, like I said, use your thumb to help you out a little bit, to help guide where your beads are going. So you can try either way, whichever one you find is easiest to do. I just wanted to clarify that so that when you were reading the instructions and you're saying, oh, she's got spoke written in here. What is a spoke? And this way here, when you're doing really intricate pieces, you can make sure that all your petals are the same size. They have the same amount of beads in them. And if your beads go a little bit crooked, don't worry about it, because once you've got all this couching in place, oops, once you've tacked this all down into place, then what you're going to do, as we did when we were just adding 5 beads at a time, what you're going to do is you are then, once you get to the base of this, you are then going to run your thread through all the beads that you just added. And that will kind of straighten them out a little bit. So now I've gotten down to my base, so I'm going to run my needle through all the beads I just added. So from the base, and this will just kind of straighten all your beads out for you on your outline. As you can see, it's a much faster way of doing it instead of doing them 5 beads at a time, 4 or 5. Okay. And there you go. There's the other petal. I kind of went off my lines a little bit, but that's not a big deal. And then I've got my other 2 spokes there, one there on that side and one on that side. And again, I would just add 28 beads, go around the outside and tack them down, and then run my thread all the way through them again. So I have my 5th outline done. Okay, so once we've got all the 5 petals outlined, what we're going to do is we're going to remove all the paper because we won't need that anymore. That was just to help us guide us. So it should pretty much all peel off. Remove your staple. You don't need your staple in there anymore. Take a pair of pliers here. So we'll just take a second and remove all your paper. Go all the way around. Get it all off. Get your staples out. And you're also going to do it on the inside. You want the inside paper of your petals out. So you can pull that all out. Let's get that out of the way. And if you have tweezers or really good long nails, I don't have decent nails. I might need a pair of tweezers to pull this out. And it's not a big deal. If you can't get it all out, your beads, if it's on the inside, your beads are going to cover it anyway. So if you don't get every little speck of paper out. So yeah, just get that all removed. Okay, so once you have all your paper removed from the inside and around the outside of the flower, this is what you should have. A little blue outline on the blue felt. So now we're going to work on doing our center rows. So we are looking at, if you're looking at your little picture there, we're going to start with the red next. Okay, so basically we're going to start right, and you can pick any petal, doesn't matter which petal you start at, and you're going to start right up against, of course, right at the base of the flower there in the center. And you're on the inside of the petal, and we're going to pick up, we'll do 4 or 5. Let's start with 4 this time. And you're just going to lay them along the side of the inside of one of your petals there. Again, needle back down. You're going to couch them into place. And go back between the first and the second one from the top. And then between the first and the second one from the bottom. And then from the bottom and up through all 4 of them again, so that your needle is exiting the top 4, just as we were doing on the outside outline of the petals. And you're just going to continue in that manner. Pick up 4, back down, and try and keep them really snug up against your outline there. So you're going to push that down in there. Okay, so it's right butted up. Now, if I really want to make sure that those are really tight against there, I can, again, as I said once before, is you can go over both rows to pull them really nice and snug together and go in on the outside of the blue one instead of on the other side of the red. So again, between my first and second one here, and I'm going to go over both rows. So my needle is now going on the opposite side of the blue. And that will pull it right snug up against the blue ones there, because you don't want to have a big gap in between here. And then once again, I'm going to go back down to the beginning where my 4 are and go back up. So my needle is now exiting. Oops, I can get it in there. So the needle will now be exiting my top of the red again. Come on, needle, get in there. There we go. Right. And you're just going to do that all the way around. Four. Up against the blue. And again. And I'm using my thumb again to kind of push those beads right snug up against the blue outline. And I'm going through my first and through there. Couching them into place. Then I'm going to go back down my 4 beads again and run my needle through those beads, so I'm exiting the top again. And you're just going to do that all the way around the inside until you have your inside row done. Okay, so you should have all the inside first row of red done. So now you've got your blue outline and your first row of red beads. Again, we're going to start now this time at the bottom of the red beads, in between, right in the middle. Your needle's going to come out right in the middle of your red beads there. And we're going to do exactly the same thing. Pick up 4 beads, couch them down, go back through them again, all the way around. I'm going to slide those beads right down so that they're right like that. Back through and couch them down. Between the first and the second at the top, and between the first and the second at the bottom. There we go. like that. And once again, through those 4 beads. So your thread is now exiting the top of the 4 beads. Now, traditionally when the Métis were doing their beadwork, they used 2 needles to do the beading. They had 1 needle with the thread that was loaded with all their beads, and then they would use another needle to tack everything down. So what they would do is they would have 1 needle here with the beads on it, and they would lay the beads down around in whatever shape they wanted, and then they would have the other needle and they would just couch it all down into place. So it was quite the procedure that they originally had. And when you think about them doing this, they did this in the daylight, either outside or at night by candlelight. Now, I have a difficult time doing it with the lights on at night, so I can only imagine how hard that must have been for them to do it at night, how the strain on their eyes. But you know, it was just incredible, the beadwork that came out of all of this stuff. I have just a couple of little small designs of different pins that I've made. That's a rose. This one was actually made for me by a girlfriend of mine who I taught how to do the beadwork. And things like this you'll see today. The Métis also, they beaded pretty much anything that they could get their hands on. They did wall hangings, they did journals, all kinds of stuff. And they were lovingly known as the flower beadwork people because of their intricate flower beadwork that they did. The floral beadwork that is done, if you'll see it in museums or if you see it in antique shops that you may go into, or stores, anything that is in a floral pattern like this, it's done in beadwork, is strictly Métis. You can almost guarantee it was made by a Métis person. I mean, there's lots of beautiful artwork out there done by different Indigenous groups, but I've got to say 99.5% of all floral beadwork will most likely have been done by a Métis person. The Métis people were also known as the rainbow people, and they were called the rainbow people because of their mixture of blood, the European blood and the native blood. So for instance, myself, I have Cree and Ojibwe. My great-grandfather was pure Cree, and my great-grandmother was, sorry, the other way around. My great-grandfather was Cree and Ojibwe, and my great-grandmother was pure Cree. And my grandmother, who would have been, you know, half of both of those, married a Chinese fellow, right from Canton, China, and which makes my mother Chinese and Cree and Ojibwe. And then my father, who was Scottish, English, and French, of course, that's how I got all my bloodline. So I have quite a bit of everything in me here. And it's I've been beading since I was 7 years old, and I absolutely love it. I've done it throughout my whole life, but I didn't find out until 2004 that I was actually Métis. I always knew we had native blood in us, but I, you know, just didn't think anything about it. I didn't know anything about native, the Indigenous population. And when I found out that I was Métis, I did a lot of studies into it, and I found out that the different cultural activities that they did, such as the different beadworks and the tanning of hides and moccasin making, leather work, pouches, all types of different things. So I have been self-taught since 2004 for as far as Métis things. For instance, that octopus bag that I showed you earlier, that was a class that I had taught to other Métis women in one of our women's groups. Once I learned, I taught myself how to do that. Yeah, and there's a lot of different, there's so much information on the Métis culture that I can't even begin to tell you all of it. But this is, I'm hoping that when you get through your little pin that you'll wear it proudly and know, like I said, that this is one of the Métis talents. Another name that they made him the world's I love with people. So when you've got your second row of red beads couched into place, then you're going to pick up blue and you're going to do the same thing and add a row of blue beads. Okay, so you should have a nice row of blue beads in the center, and we're just going to finish off by adding a few red ones next. Okay, so once you've got your center all done, you're just going to continue on and do all your other petals exactly in the same manner. And when you've got them all done, you should have a piece that looks like this. Of course, it'll be, and then what you're going to do is you're going to trim, as I have done here, all the way around the outside of your pin, being very, very careful not to cut the threads on the back or around the edges of your beads, because what will happen is all your beads will fall off, and we don't want that. So once you've got that done, what you're going to do is you're going to take your other piece of blue felt and you're going to put it on the back like this, and then you're also going to cut this felt out all the way around, leaving a little bit larger, a little bit more of an edge to it, so that it will, when it's all cut out, it'll be on the back. Now you can either choose to sew your pin back on here before you actually attach the felt piece, or you can put it on after, sew it on afterwards, or glue it on. It makes no difference which order you do it in. So now that we've got that, I've got my thread coming out the side of the pin here. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to sew these two pieces together. I'm going to sew my felt and I'm going to go between the row of beads just to make sure it kind of anchors the beads a little bit more. So I'm just going to go between the row of beads, over, bring my needle to the back, and through the beads again. Thread over to the back, through the beads again. Oops, got a bit of a knot there. There we go. Okay, now I tried to make sure that there was enough thread in these kits, but sometimes you might run a little bit short. If you do, you can finish up using just a regular sewing thread. And through here again, and you're just going to do that all the way around and attach your, once you've got that all done and it's all nice and secure, you're just going to attach your pin back and you will have a completed pin like that. Okay, so I hope everybody was able to follow along with me all right. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me at lollipoplinda@yahoo.com. That is LOLLIPOPLINDA@yahoo.com. And I will do my best to answer any questions you may have. Oh, and there was almost one other thing that I forgot to tell you about with Métis beading. And if you'll notice, I got my finger covering my mistake here. See, I made a little mistake right there where I didn't put one more, should have been one more blue bead in there, which is fine. Traditionally, and actually to today's beading, we are taught as Métis beaders that there should always be a mistake in the work that you do. If you go into the museums, you may see a pair of moccasins that have a beautiful blue flower, and then there's a red bead or a green bead or an orange bead in the center of it, and it's out of place, and you're like, okay, why would they have that oddball bead in there? The reason that bead would have been put there on purpose, because they call those either vanity beads or spirit beads. And the reason there is always a mistake in the work or a, you know, like an oddball bead or something in the work, is because the Métis believe that the only one that's perfect is the creator. So our work should not be perfect. There should always be a mistake in it, whether it be a misplaced bead, or in my case right here where I left out a bead. And that is just, like I said, it's just to show that we are not perfect, and should not expect ourselves to be. So if you made a mistake, that's perfectly fine with the Métis. That's the way it's supposed to be. So once again, thank you for attending, and please post pictures and have yourselves a great day. I know.